Hello everyone. Hello, welcome to the Know Club. Let's get in the know. Hi, I am Anna, and today was an interesting day, an exciting day. I feel a little loopy right now. I got my period yesterday, super fun, and I left my lunch at a potential job today, and I did not get to consume any of it because I was just like learning the ropes, whatever. Anyway, I've been searching for a motherfucking job for like 6 weeks now. This doesn't sound like a long time, but in this expensive city, I'm in New York. That's a long fucking term. So I'm so happy that I can say, after weeks and weeks. Sorry, that was probably too loud into the mic there. Sorry about that. After weeks and weeks of searching endlessly, I had a good feeling about the job that I had this initial interview for. It's essentially like a personal chef, housekeeping, house manager job. That looks better, right? That's bothering me. It was really pissing me off. That's more centered. That's more centered. That's cute. So yeah, essentially it's a house managing position. So I really love the couple. I want to say more, but I don't want to like jinx myself, whatever. They said they want to move forward. So the ball's in my court. And you know how much I love balls. JK, this is my girlfriend's Zippa, and I love her. So I miss her, and that's why I'm wearing it. Essentially, that's why I'm fucking wearing it. Qua, bitch. All right. So I was supposed to film yesterday. I didn't because the period hit and I was like, whoa, Nelly. You know that first into second day, it's like, it can be pretty intense. I've been taking the medication, so I'm feeling okay right now. But it was also a holiday yesterday, so it's fine. I actually set everything up, and then I was having technical difficulties. So because of those, because of the TD, the TD bank, the technical difficulties, I didn't stream. And I was like kind of mad that because I was all set up. I did a little makeup. I thought, I was ready to put my issues aside and go forth and conquer. And then that was the last straw. The Twitch app, you're not so hot, okay? I've got qualms with yo. So I really want to jump in. I just also want to say, especially because I'm on Twitch, and this is a gaming platform, it's for many other things, but hello, yes, I'm aware. Not myself personally, but my girlfriend has been playing The Last of Us, and she's already played both of them. I think there's 3, but we only played 2, the first and second of the prologue. I don't know. But she played both of them with me. I was supposed to play them, but then it got too scary. And I was like, I'm gonna sit this game out and I'm gonna watch because it's fucking beautiful. I'm so entranced by the story that all yesterday evening was spent playing The Last of Us 2. So that's why. You're welcome. That's why I wasn't here. And was it yesterday? Yeah, that was it was Sunday night we played. And then Monday night at 9, that was the show premiere on HBO, which we did watch. And I'm not like that uptight with my criticisms. Things don't really piss me off that much, other than the way the world is, other than that little tiny nugget. But when it comes, there's certain things, but when it comes to like adaptations, I don't really get too butthurt. And I think they did a fantastic job. I really do. The only thing that's kind of like iffy, and spoiler alert, if you haven't seen The Last of Us on HBO, the first episode, or any of them, I don't know when you're watching this, spoiler. I don't like that our main hero, Joel, is a pill popper. Because there's not really much information, except for the fact that you have to pick up pills along the way in the game. But that is for, it's for focus. It's kind of like Adderall, I think. But yeah, that's kind of my one thing. I am just really fucking excited to see where this goes and how they show the bloaters. Ugh, those things are fucking nasty, and it's gonna be stunning and gorgeous. I'm so fucking excited for it. Play the game if you haven't. Lesbian relationship at the forefront, and that is just so fucking beautiful and amazing. Storytelling it's gripping. It's emotional, okay? I'm invested. But let's move that a little bit closer. I got my drinks here. Because I didn't eat properly today because I forgot about my lunch because I was doing house manager jobs of like writing things down and listening, just running around. I was like, oh wait, I have to actually stop for a second and eat some food or whatever. So I didn't have time to do that. I completely forgot. I feel kind of like, you know that feeling. It's not like it's past hunger. That's what it is. That's where I'm at. That's where I'm reading from. And I'm a little sniffly because that's just who I am, baby. I want to get rid of this inflammation, and perhaps this family that I'm working for, they are hardcore vegans. We're talking like old school vegans. I'm not going to get into it right now. The more I get to know them, I'm going to let you know. They are so interesting and so sweet, and I genuinely want to help them live an easier life. They deserve it. But I think I can learn a lot from them, and I think maybe I will potentially implement some of the cooking ways and the storage ways also, definitely, because the organization was chef's kiss. I was like, this is so impressive. I love it. I need another drink. So, where were we? Page 100, I do believe, I do declare. Let's jump back into the harsh reality. Okay. Woo, we're reading now, baby. I love me. Cassandra, Among the Creeps is the title of this chapter. Yes, we're on 103. Ooh, let me show you the picture right here. Okay, chapter 7. Boom. She is swimming. She's swimming through water, and I'm assuming she's wearing, she's wearing heels. She's always wearing heels. Just treading water, keeping her head above water, pushing through. Now that might be the breaststroke, kids. The story of Cassandra, the woman who told the truth but was not believed. I know this tale. Do I know this tale because I read this book? Probably. But I also feel like I learned about it in college. Let's continue. Is not nearly as embedded in our culture as that of the boy who cried wolf. Do you say wolf or woof? Because I want to say wolf, but I don't. I will say wolf, but that's not who I am. That's not how I grew up. I want to say woof. Woof. That is, the boy who believed the first few times he told the same lie. Who was believed the first few times told the same lie. Perhaps it should be. The daughter of the king of Troy, Cassandra, was cursed with the gift of accurate prophecies. No one heeded. Her people thought she was both crazy and a liar, and in some accounts locked her up before Agamemnon took her as a spoil of war, who was casually slain along with him. Wow, that's fucking, that already pisses me off. Like, I'm already mad about that. Just took her casually, for war. Like, I've been thinking of Cassandra as we sail through the choppy waters of the gender wars. Ooh, what a great way to describe that. Excuse me a second. I'm fine. I'm not dying. I don't have the vid. That one was a joke. That didn't clear out anything. Because credibility is such a foundational power in those wars, and because women are so often accused of being categorically lacking in this department. Not uncommonly, when a woman says something that impugns a man, particularly one at the heart of the status quo, especially if it has to do with sex, the response will question not just the facts of her assertion, but her capacity to speak and her right to do so. Generations of women have been told that they are delusional, confused, manipulative, malicious, conspiratorial, congenitive. Why can't I say that word right now? Congenitally? That sounds like genitals, and I don't like that at all. Congenitally, Congenitally. You say it now. Did you say it correctly or incorrectly? It's like a little tongue twister in my mouth. slow down. I just gotta giggle at myself, you know? I'm a goofy goober. What do you want from me? This is who I really am. I'm a goof. And I love that for me. I love that journey for me. My life is a goofy movie, except no skateboarding. I'm not Goofy's son. Or dishonest. I think that let's look that up, because that's what we do here. We don't shy away from looking like an absolute buffoon, and we edumacate ourselves, and we say it fucking right. So let's go to the goofs, right? Because my biggest thing is like getting tongue-tied and tripping over my words. Even when I know exactly what I want to say, I'll still get tripped up. My laptop is, oh no, we're good. It was doing the spinning ball. Come on, you. You son of a bitch. Why does my couch have to be so far away? Sunrise, sunrise. Google is loading right now. Now it's here. I'm gonna type it in. Oh God, I'm sorry this is taking literally so long. My computer is being slow and it...
Congenitally.
What? It's saying it.
Congenitally.
Congenitally. I said, okay, I'm not crazy. I thought I was crazy because I'm a woman. That's a joke, that's not. But, you know, congenitally, dishonest. Now, the meaning is in a way that existed since. In a way that existed since or before birth. That makes sense. It's kind of what I figured, but that definition just really, it's so crystal clear. It's just that it's in our genes to be delusional. That's a lie. Often, all at once. Now, part of what interests me, that was the end of that sentence, sorry, I got a little cut off, is that they've been told that they are all of these things often all at once. There we go. Part of what interests me is the impulse to dismiss, and how often it slides into the very incoherence or hysteria of which women are routinely accused. It would be nice if, say, Rush Limbaugh, who called Sandra Fluke a slut or a prostitute for testifying to Democrats in Congress about the need to fund birth control, and who apparently completely failed to comprehend how birth control works. Limbaugh, the word salad king, the factually challenged, the eternally riled, got called hysterical once in a while. He got called hysterical once in a while? That's amazing. Rachel Carson was labeled thus for her landmark work on the dangers of pesticides, Silent Spring. Carson had put together a book whose research was meticulously footnoted and whose argument is now considered prophetic. But the chemical companies were not happy, and being female was, so to speak, her Achilles heel. On October 14th, 1962, the Arizona Star, this is italicized, the Arizona Star, reviewed her book with the headline, Silent Spring Makes Protest Too Hysterical. The preceding month, in an article that assured readers that DDT was entirely harmless to humans. What's DDT? It's capitalized? I didn't know. Was entirely harmless to humans. Time magazine had called Carson's book unfair, one-sided, and hysterically over-empathetic. Many scientists sympathize with Miss Carson's mystical attachment to the balance of nature, and these are all quotes. The review aloud, quote, but they fear that her emotional and inaccurate outbursts may do harm, end quote. Carson was a scientist, incidentally. Hysteria derives from the Greek word for uterus. Now, I feel like this is almost common knowledge at this point, and I can honestly thank TikTok for that. I mean, I knew about hysteria before, but I do not think the masses knew this piece of information. So once I saw it just being pop up in conversation, casual conversation all the time, I'm like, yes, I'm into it. This is what we need to be talking about. Greek word for uterus and the extreme emotional state. I love it. We're talking about hysteria right now as I'm on my period. Raging. I'm so hysterical right now. I'm just out of control. I'm gonna blow up a country. No, I'm not a man. And the extreme emotional state it denotes was once thought to be due to a wandering womb. I'm sorry? I'm so sorry? A wandering womb? I never want to hear that term. That's fucking weird. It's like not even it's personification. How can like a body part inside be wandering? It's there. It's not its own being. Men were by definition exempt from this diagnosis that now just means being incoherent, overwrought, and maybe confused. In the late 19th century, it was a commonly diagnosed condition. It is still a commonly, it's a diagnosed condition still to this day. When you go to a therapist and they can say that you are hypersensitive. That's what that means. You have hypersensitivity. And that you have to, that goes on your records. And that can cause you some issues down the line. So, here we go. Women diagnosed with hysteria, whose agonies were put on display by Sigmund Freud's teacher, Jean-Martin Charcot, appear in some cases to have been suffered from abuse, the resultant trauma, and the inability to express its cause. Fucking duh. The young Freud had a succession of patients whose troubles seemed to spring from childhood sexual abuse. What they were saying was unspeakable in a sense. Even today, the severe traumas in war and domestic life, so violent social mores in the victim's psyche that they are excruciating to articulate. Valid. I wish you were closer, microphone. I didn't have to lean so far forward. Like, I want to be here. I want to be leaning back and relaxing. And I can't lean back and relax because my setup is a joke. Maybe if you know what? Let me help myself. I'm going to get a bunch of pillows and I'm going to put them behind me. Dose. Or E-R in Mandarin. E-R, su, wu. Yeah. I gotta practice my Mandarin again. It's been too long, honey. Been too long. Oh, that's better. Yeah. Very much more supported. All right. Sexual assault, like torture, hello, because it is an attack on a victim's right to bodily integrity, to self-determination and self-expression. I think it goes even deeper than that, Those words are just like, they're not, the gravity of it, it's just not enough, Language can only get us so far. It's supposed to be annihilation. Annihilatory, that's the word. It's annihilatory, silencing. It intends to rub out the voice and rights of the victim, who must rise out of that annihilation to speak, to tell a story and have it, and then the teller recognized and respected, is still one of the best methods we have of overcoming trauma. For its patients, amazingly, found their way to telling what they had suffered. And at first, he heard them. Oh, at first? Can everybody just get off Freud's dick for a second? Okay? because it's dead, actually, and, you know, not actually. It's just dead. God, let's get some new material, people. Freud's patients amazingly found their way. Oh, yes. And at first he heard them. In 1896, he wrote, quote, "I therefore put forward the thesis that at the bottom of every case of hysteria, there are one or more occurrences of premature sexual experience," end quote. Then he repudiated his findings. If he believed his patients, he wrote, quote, "In all cases, the father, not excluding my own, had to be accused of being perverse," end quote. As the feminist psychiatric Judith Herman puts it in her book, Trauma and Recovery, quote, "His correspondence makes clear that he was increasingly troubled by the radical social implications of his hypothesis. Faced with this dilemma, Freud stopped listening to his female patients." That I knew. That I've heard before. If they were telling the truth, he would have to challenge the whole edifice of patriarchal authority to support them. Later, she adds, quote, "With a stubborn persistence that drove him into ever greater convolutions of theory, he insisted that women imagined and longed for the abusive sexual encounters of which they complained," end quote. Now, it was as though a handy alibi had been constructed for all transgressive authority, all male perpetrators of crimes against females. She wanted it. She imagined it. She doesn't know what she's saying. Silence, like Dante's hell, has its concentric circles. First come the internal inhibitions, self-doubts, repressions, confusions, and shame that make it difficult to impossible to speak. I've been there. I know this is not a fucking lie. I have experienced this myself to a T, along with the fear of being punished or ostracized for doing so. Susan Brizzen, now chair of the philosophy department at Dartmouth, was raped in 1990 by a man. A stranger who called her a whore told her to shut up before choking her repeatedly, bashed her head with a stone, and leaving her for dead. Afterward, she found various problems in talking about the experience. Quote, "It was one thing to have decided to speak and write about my rape, but another to find the voice with which to do it. Even after my fractured trachea had healed, I frequently had trouble speaking. I was never entirely mute, but I often had bouts of what a friend labeled fractured speech." I'm using that. I think you should too, if you can relate, if in any, if it makes sense in conversation. Fractured speech. Because I've had moments like that in my life where I am just unable to communicate because of something that has happened to me, and I'm actually terrified of saying the wrong thing. Perhaps this new job will allow me to get a therapist, and I can talk about all that, and I can bring all that stuff up here, and that will be real insightful and real interesting. I'd like to know more about myself, although I feel like I already overanalyze myself, because who the fuck doesn't? Like, I think that's kind of strange if you're not out here just analyzing the shit out of yourself, out of everybody else. I feel like it's almost just a human thing. Am I wrong? I could be wrong. Then tell me, am I wrong? Do you not overanalyze stuff? Because if you don't, how? What are your secrets? Is it overanalyzing, or is it just analyzing, and is that bad? I feel like overanalyzation, because of the over in front of it, makes you feel like it's negative. And I think in some instances, it's not a negative at all. I think it's something very useful. Being analytical is extremely useful, especially today. Oh, always, but really though, you gotta analyze the shit out of what. You can't trust anything anymore. You can't trust where your food's coming from. You can't trust people out in the street. Can't trust men. Can't trust people. It's tough. You certainly can't. When I work, I trusting and respecting, that's different. That's different. And when I was teaching kickboxing, I would say, you have my respect immediately. Because you're another human being, you have my respect. You don't have to do anything to earn my respect. You do not have to earn anything. Like, as another human being, you have it. But once you show me that you know, once you do something that takes that respect away, then you can earn it back, or I may never give that respect back. You know what I'm saying? And I have other people I've been that person that, people don't respect or think fondly of, and I get it now. I've made tons of mistakes. Are you kidding me? And then working to respect myself, that's still a constant battle, because I've changed my behavior, but I'm still the same person. I still went through those things, but now because I've changed my behavior, it hurts me that I've hurt other people, or at the time I was blinded by my own actions. Now, we were in a very dark place. Let's continue in this darkness. All right. Here it is. I was never entirely mute, but I often had bouts of what a friend labeled fractured speech, during which I stuttered and stammered, unable to string together a simple sentence without the words scattering like a broken necklace, end quote. It's exactly what it's like. Fuck's sake, I feel like that happens to me all the time. Surrounding this circle are the forces who attempt to silence someone who speaks up anyway, whether by humiliating or bullying or outright violence, including violence unto death. This region is now notably populated by the victims of high school and college rapes. In many cases, these young women have been hounded and threatened for speaking up. Some have been suicidal as a result, because that's one thing that can happen. The potential crimes go uninvestigated or unprosecuted, and many American universities appear to be graduating numerous unpunished rapists these days. God, I've met many in my day. Finally, in the outermost ring, when the story has been told and the speaker has not been silenced directly, tale and teller are discredited. Given the hostility of this zone, you could call the brief era when Freud listened to his patients with an open mind a false dawn. Oh God, that's another great term, a false dawn. And something that should be inevitable, the dawn, From dusk to dawn, they're always going to be there until they're not. So you expect to have an experience with a psychiatrist, a therapist, or a doctor, and then it is not that. So it is a false dawn. It's a great way to describe that experience. Perhaps you go to the doctor and they don't listen to a fucking thing you say, or they don't believe your pain because you are a woman, or someone who's not white. Yeah. I just like that description. I think it's really good. Use it. Use it. It's clever. For it's particularly when women speak up about sexual crimes that their right and capacity to speak come under attack. It seems almost reflexive at this point. It does. Fucking doesn't it? It's just like, yeah, it's a fucking reflex. It's just part of this society. And there's certainly a very clear pattern, one that has a history. That pattern was first comprehensively challenged in the 1980s. We have at this point heard way too much about the 1960s, but the revolutionary changes of the 1980s in toppled regimes around the world, and in the bedroom, the classroom, the workplace, and the streets, and even in political organizing, with the feminist-inspired rise of consensus and other anti-hierarchical, anti-authoritarian techniques, are mostly neglected and forgotten. It was an explosive era. The feminism of that era is often dismissed as grimly sex because it pointed out that sex is an arena of power and that power is liable to abuse, and because it described the nature of some of that abuse. Feminists didn't just push the legislation, but from the mid-1970s on, defined and named whole categories of violation that had previously been unrecognized. In doing so, they announced that abuse of power was a serious problem, and that the authority of men, of bosses, husbands, fathers, and adults generally, was going to be questioned. They created a framework and support network for stories of incest and child abuse, as well as rape and domestic violence. These stories became part of the narrative, explosive in our time, as so many of the formerly silent spoke up about their experiences. Part of the messiness of that era was that no one quite knew how to listen to children, or how to question them, or in some cases, how to sift through their own memories, or those of adult patients in therapy. The infamous McMartin preschool abuse trial, one of the longest and most costly in this country's history, began in 1983, when a Los Angeles area mother claimed her child was molested there. The authorities not only jumped on the situation, but asked parents to ask their children leading questions and employed a therapist to interview hundreds of children with more leading questions. Rewards, puppets, and other tools and techniques to help them construct wild stories about satanic abuse. I know about this one. The result of the McMartin trials, chaotic interrogations are sometimes cited as evidence that children are unreliable, delusional liars. But it might be useful to remember that it was the adults who were the problem in that case. Law professor Doug Linder writes that the prosecutor gave an interview in which he, quote, acknowledges that children began embellishing their stories of sexual abuse, and said that as prosecutors we had no business being in court, and added that potentially exculpatory what a great word, exculpatory evidence was withheld. Even so, the accused in that long trial and a subsequent one were not found guilty, though this is seldom remembered. On October 11th, 1991, a law professor was called to testify before the Senate Judiciary Committee. The occasion was the confirmation hearing for Clarence fucking Thomas. Oh, I hate it. We're here talking about good old CT. Oh my god. I need a drink. Are we having fun yet? Or is this just pissing you off? I feel like a migraine is coming on from all this. What can I say? I'm fucking pissed off. God. Just drives me nuts. Rightfully so. Alright, let's continue. We can do it. Clarence Thomas. We know what this is going to be about. It's going to be about Anita Hill. Nominated to the Supreme Court by George H.W. Bush. The speaker was Anita Hill. When asked in a private interview, and then after that interview was leaked to the press and Senate hearings, she recounted a list of incidents in which Thomas, then her boss, made her listen to him talk about pornography he'd watched and his sexual fantasies. He also pressured her to date him. When she declined, she said, quote, he would not accept my explanation as being valid. Yeah, that sounds like men. As though no were not itself valid. Though she was criticized for doing nothing about his conduct at the time, it's worth remembering that feminists had only recently articulated the concept and coined the term sexual harassment, and that only in 1986, after the incidents she described had taken place, had the Supreme Court recognized such behavior in the workplace as a violation of the law. When she did speak up about it in 1991, she was attacked extravagantly and furiously. Her interrogators were all men. The Republicans in particular, jocular, and I like that. That's a fun word. Jocular, and incredulous and jeering. Senator Arlen Specter asked one witness who, on the basis of a couple of fleeting encounters, testified that Hill had sexual fantasies about him. Quote, "Do you think it's a possibility that Professor Hill imagined and fantasized?" I don't know what the fuck this guy sounds like, but I'm gonna make him some. "Do you think it's a possibility that Professor Hill imagined and fantasized the things she has charged with him? It was the Freudian framework all over again." When she said, okay, I think, is that the end of the quote? I don't even know where the end of the quote is. I can't find it yet, so I'm gonna stop doing that. Do you think it's a possibility that Professor Hill imagined and fantasized the things she has charged him with? Ugh, ridiculous. I think it's supposed to be there. It was the Freudian framework all over again. When she said something repellent happened, she was wishing it had, and maybe she couldn't tell the difference. The country was in an uproar, and sort of a civil war, as many women understood exactly how ordinary harassment is, and how many unpleasant consequences there are for reporting it. And many men didn't get it. I don't think they still fucking get it. I think there's a lot of men who do though, and I see you, I appreciate you. Obviously, I'm not talking to you. That you wouldn't be triggered. Yeah, you know what I mean? So if you're triggered right now, then I'm talking about you. In the short term, Hill was subjected to a humiliating ordeal, and Thomas won the appointment anyway. The loudest accusations came from conservative journalist David Brock. That sounds like a fucking terrible. It's just a bad name. I'm sorry if you have that name, David Brock. I'm sorry. I'm prejudiced against your name now because of this ass hat. But also Brock, first name or last, it's just not. It's not great. It creeps me out. I immediately think, skeezy frat bro. So if you're a Brock out there and you're breaking that norm, good for you. Why don't you give Brock a better meaning, a better definition, give him a new title, because in everyone's mind, Brock is a fucking prick. So that's on you, Brock. That's on you, buddy. Be better. Be better. Be better. Be better than that. That's a stereotype. That's fine. You can overcome that. I have faith in you. You're not the only one. There are other names that have stereotypes, a lot of names too, who published first an article and then a whole book smearing Hill. Oh my God, I want to burn that book. Let's burn that book together. A decade later, he repented from both his attacks on her and his alignment with the right, writing, quote, "Doing everything I could to ruin Hill's credibility, I took a scattershot approach, dumping virtually every derogatory and often contradictory allegation I collected on Hill from the Thomas camp into the mix. She was, in my words, quote, in the quote, a little bit nutty and a little bit slutty." Wow, Brock, you're so smart. You know how to whine. And this is in his supposed apology or just acknowledgement that, oh yeah, I fucking did all that shit. Just, I'll acknowledge it, sure. Let's read on. Yeah, he just fucking admitted it. It's like, ugh, I did that. What an asshole. In the long term, quote, "I believe you, Anita," end quote, became a feminist slogan. And Hill is often credited with launching a revolution in recognition of and response to workplace sexual harassment. A month after the hearings, Congress passed the Civil Rights Act of 1991, part of which allowed sexual harassment victims to sue their employers for damages and back pay. Only in 1991, people, okay? People, this is fucking real. Harassment claims skyrocketed. Through the motherfucking roof, bitch. Because it's always been there. It's always fucking been there. Okay? If there is, somebody who reads body language, who attempts to read my body language and I'm saying something and then I'm shaking my head no, and they're like, oh, she actually doesn't mean what she's saying. That's what that body language is. No, it's just I'm passionate and I'm pissed off. That's where that is coming from. Doesn't mean what I'm saying is wrong. It's the same when people like, oh, you cross your hands like this, you're defensive. Maybe I'm fucking cold. Maybe my back hurts and I feel more supported that way. Maybe I don't know what to do with my hands. You know what I mean? I think I do watch some of those videos on YouTube. There's a couple people that I follow who do the body analysis, and I just find it interesting, but I don't believe it. I think there are certain tells, but you have to know an individual. Like, yeah, you have to know their baseline, and if you don't know their baseline, and also people fucking change. I think, well, that is not it with the hair. There. Whoa, party. Party in the back, baby. I think it's a silly thing to dedicate your life to, but hey, I'm also a silly person, and this is what I'm doing right now, but this ain't silly, baby. This is important information, but yes, it is pissing me off. Harassment claims skyrocketed, because duh, as people were given a way to address workplace abuses. The 1992 election was nicknamed the Year of the Woman. Look how far we've come. And Carol Moseley Braun, excuse me, still the only African-American woman ever elected to the Senate. Is that true anymore? I don't think that's true anymore. Is it? Better not fucking be true. I don't know politics that much, so you can't hate me for that. Don't hate me for that. And also, up here, I can't keep too much information. I'm on overload. Just with my day-to-day, I'm on overload. One office, along with more female senators and congresswomen than ever before. We'll see, okay, so at this time, she was the first ever African-American woman elected to the Senate. So that's what's happening. Got it. And one office along with more female senators and congresswomen than ever before. We love to see it. Still, even now, when a woman says something uncomfortable about male conduct, she is routinely portrayed as delusional, a malicious conspirator, a pathological liar, a whiner who doesn't recognize it's all in fun, or all of the fucking above. The overkill of these responses recalls Freud's deployment of the joke about the broken kettle. A man accused by his neighbor of having returned a borrowed kettle damaged replies that he had returned it undamaged. It was already damaged when he borrowed it, and he had never borrowed it anyway. Crazy. When a woman accuses a man and he or his defenders protest that much, she becomes that broken kettle. Even this year, when Dylan Farlow repeated her charges that her adoptive father, okay, Woody Allen, I feel like I was talking about Woody Allen like recently. Why don't we talk about that motherfucker more? He's just not talked about enough anymore. You know what I think it is? I think it's too many people. I think it's too many sexual predators in the world to like talk about all the time. Definitely in Hollywood. Well, because there's men there. And there's power. There's power structure. And you know how men like to abuse power. Honey, are you living in planet Earth right now? Thousands of years. They abuse their power. All the fucking time. Can't trust them. She became the most broken kettle around. A host of attackers arose. Allen published a tirade asserting he could not have molested the child in the attic room where she said he did because he didn't like that room. Proposing that his daughter had been coached and indoctrinated by her mother, Mia, who might have ghost-written the accusation Dylan Farlow published, and adding that Mia had undoubtedly gotten the idea from a song about an attic. What fucking song is there about an attic? I don't know, but it's all bullshit. There was another gender divide in which many women found the young woman credible. because they'd heard it all before, while many men seemed focused on false accusations and exaggerated the frequency of such occurrences. The ghost of the McMartin preschool trial was raised by people who seemed to have a false memory of the trial and its outcomes. Herman's Trauma and Recovery, which addresses rape, child molestation, and wartime trauma, together notes, this is all in Herman's Trauma and Recovery, secrecy and silence are the perpetrator's first line of defense. If secrecy fails, the perpetrator attacks the credibility of his victim. If he cannot silence her absolutely, he tries to make sure that no one listens. After every atrocity, one can expect to hear the same predictable apologies. It never happened. The victim lies. The victim exaggerates. The victim brought it on herself. And in any case, it is time to forget the past and move on. Just move on. The more powerful the perpetrator, the greater is his prerogative to name and define reality. And the more completely his arguments prevail. End. Insert. They don't always prevail in our time. We are still in an era of battles over who will be granted the right to speak and the right to be believed. And pressure comes from both directions, from the men's rights movement, which is, I'm sorry. Just that's really funny to me. And a lot of popular misinformation comes the notion that there is an epidemic of groundless accusations of sexual assault. Oh wow, there's a really large insert, little star. It goes to the bottom, so I am going to read it. Here we go. False accusations of rape are a reality, and a relatively rare one. Though the stories of those convicted falsely are terrible. A British study by the Crown Prosecution Service released in 2013 noted that there were, this is a British study, by the way, that there were 5,651 prosecutions for rape in the period studied versus only 35 prosecutions for false allegations of rape. Okay, 35 to 5,651 in the period that was studied. And a 2000 U.S. Department of Justice report cites these estimates for the United States. Ooh, yikes. Oh God, it's a big number. It's not as big as that. I mean, obviously this is just the reports, you know. So many more going unreported. Why can't I say 322,230? 300,022,230 annual rapes, resulting in 55,424 reports to police, 26,271 arrests, and 7,007 convictions. 7,007. Yeah. Where's it end? You know, I did really good in math, and then I didn't fucking need it, so I forgot. Where slightly more than 2% of rapes counted, and 12% of rapes reported resulted in jail sentences. Only 12%. Of which the number that were false is undoubtedly not colossal. You hear what I'm saying right now? Are you listening? Are you picking up what I'm putting down? The implication that women as a category are unreliable and that false rape charges are the real issue, I like to say issue with a British accent, is used to silence individual women and to avoid discussing sexual violence and to make out men as the principal victims. Oh, it's so hard for you. Oh no. The framework is reminiscent of that attached to voter fraud. Okay. A crime so rare in the United States that it appears to have had no significant impact on election outcomes in a very long time. Nevertheless, claims by conservatives that such fraud is widespread have in recent years been used to disenfranchise the kinds of people, poor, non-white, students, likely to vote against them. arguing here that women and children don't lie. Men, women, and children lie. Hello, we're human. But the latter two are not disproportionately prone to doing so. And men, a category that includes used car salesmen, Baron von Munchausen and Richard Nixon, are not possessed of special veracity. I am arguing that we should be clear that this old framework of feminine mendacity, and murky mindedness is still routinely trotted out, and we should learn to recognize it for what it is. A friend of mine who works in sexual harassment training at a major university reports that when she gave a presentation at the business school on her campus, one of the older male professors asked, quote, "Why would we start an investigation based on only one woman's report?" End quote. She has dozens of stories like this and others about women, students, employees, professors, researchers struggling to be believed, especially when they testify against high-status offenders. This summer, antediluvian, what the fuck does that mean? Oh my god, yeah, there's no fucking way I would have known that. It has to do with the Bible. I don't give a two shits about the Bible. Respect, if you do. My personal opinion, I don't care.
Antediluvian.
Yeah, antediluvian. Ooh, what a saucy word. Say it with me. Antediluvian. And you have to use the most facial muscles you possibly can to say it, because that's a good time. Yeah, of or belonging to the time before the biblical flood. Okay. That's interesting that she used that there. The antediluvian columnist is just saying that he's just old in his thinking, because that's fucking funny. George Will claimed that there is only a, quote, supposed campus epidemic of rape, end quote, and that when universities of feminists or liberals, quote, make victimhood a coveted status that confers privileges, victims proliferate, end quote. Young women replied by creating the Twitter hashtag survivor privilege, posting remarks such as, quote, "I didn't realize it was a privilege to live with PTSD, severe anxiety, and depression," and, quote, hashtag should I be quiet, because when I spoke out, everyone said it was a lie. Will's column hardly even constitutes a twist on the old idea that women are naturally unreliable, that there's nothing to see in all these rape charges, and that we should just move along. I had a tiny scale model of that experience myself earlier this year. I had posted on social media a slice of an essay I'd published a few years ago about the 1970s in California. Immediately, a stranger, a man of affluence and culture, denounced me on Facebook in response to its 2 paragraphs about incidents in my life back then. Being hit on by grown-up hippie dudes when I was embarking on my teens. Both his fury and his baseless confidence and his ability to render judgment was remarkable. He said in part, You're exaggerating beyond reality with no more proof offered than a Fox News reporter. You feel it's true, so you say it's true. What I call a bullshit. I should have offered proof, as though proof were possible about a host of incidents decades ago. I am like bad people who distort facts. I am subjective to, but believe I am objective. I feel, but confuse feelings with thinking or knowing. It's such a familiar litany and a familiar rage. If we could recognize or even name this pattern of discrediting, we could bypass recommencing. That's interesting, I like that word. Recommencing the credibility conversation every time. Am I saying that right? Recommencing? I just never use it. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? It's commencing, but then it's recommencing. So, oh my God, it's recommencing. Jesus fucking Christ. Yo. Can we recommence this in a moment after my drink? That was really funny. I knew that there was something up with the way that I was fucking reading that shit. My brain just went to like completely different language. Oh, that was interesting. Bypass recommencing the credibility conversation every time a woman speaks. I love it. One more thing about Cassandra. Remember, this was about her. It's how we started this chapter. In the most famous version of the myth, the disbelief with which her prophecies were met was the result of a curse placed on her by Apollo when she refused to have sex with the god. The idea that loss of credibility is tied to asserting rights over your own body was there all along, but with the real-life Cassandras among us, we can lift the curse by making up our own minds about who to believe and why. Yes. I love it. We're on the next chapter, but I'm feeling really hungry, so I'm gonna stop here. I feel like this is good. Tell me. Tell me. An hour, 2 hours, it can fluctuate, you know, when I get some people in the room, because right now it's completely quiet and it's just me here reading to myself, which it will still be, but hopefully I will have some people to interact with, which would be really wonderful. But right now, when you come back, I mean, when there are people here, and you're watching this back, let me know. An hour, 2 hours, I feel like that's the sweet spot. 2 hours is like definitely ideal, but I'm not always gonna have the sauce at the end of the night. And I listen to my body, baby. I listen to my body. So I'm gonna stop here for tonight, okay? And yeah, now that I have this job, it is off today. Now that I have the job, I am going to stream in the eve of the night, and it's going to be at 9, you know, give or take 5 minutes, because the goddamn subway and the bus, because the bus just fucking decided to not go the way that it was scheduled to go. Super fun. Yeah, I think 9 p.m. Monday through Friday for an hour to 2 hours. And listen, should we have completed this book already? Yes. Yes, we should have. It's taking a little bit longer than I anticipated, but you know what? I'm not going to rush this process. I'm not going to rush the knowledge. I'm not going to rush the enjoyment of even just using my voice, because that is, you know, if you saw the first video, that is huge for me. That's a part of this process, is finding my voice, finding words again, because I've been having like brain fog and just feeling like the things that I want to communicate, I am just sometimes unable to, because I get too you know, hurt, or like it's hard for me to speak up, essentially, because I'm afraid that, you know, just my voice is gonna crack, whatever, you know what I mean? There's a lot to unpack there. So this is helping me a ton, and it's really fun, and I can't wait for y'all to be in here, hanging out with me, learning with me, enjoying my goofiness, and yeah, I'm never gonna tone it down. So if you don't like it, I apologize, because it's gonna be reading and being me and a little bit of discussion here and there, but definitely be discussing more when I get more people in here. Anywho's, that was chapter 7, and I'm gonna see y'all tomorrow at 9 p.m. 9 p.m. We're doing it tomorrow, even though I don't start this job until next Monday. I'm going to keep that time because I need the schedule for myself. Yeah, the fucking No Club. Let's know more. You learned about that story about Cassandra. You learned so many facts tonight. If there's anything that you you want to go back and you want to write down, replay it. You know what I mean? Like, just get your grimy hands with your pen and your paper, or do it on the phone, whatever you got to do, and record this knowledge that you have access to it, and maybe even crazy, practice saying some of these things out loud so that you know, if you feel like you're in a conversation that makes sense, or you want to educate somebody, or you feel like it's worthwhile to educate somebody, or they're willing to listen, or maybe you even struggle with public speaking or making new friends. I mean, granted, this isn't really the best material to be making new friends, but at least you have something to talk about. And there is a war on knowledge. And we're going to read a very spooky, ooky, dooky, kooky, and shookity bookity book on, I'm not even gonna, it's on, you know, He Who Shall Not Be Named Orange Man. So it's intense. I remember I only got through for like a couple pages before I threw it across the room because I was so enraged, and this was back in 2018, so it's been a minute. But we're going to revisit that. I'm going to revisit that. I'm going to get through it with you. And yeah, we're going to learn all about fascism. Fun. Not. That's a joke. Anyway, a bad one. It's not really a joke. Didn't really have a punchline at all. It's just, you know, LOL. With all of that rambling, I'm going to go. Thank you for tuning in to the Know Club. Let's know more tomorrow at 9 p.m. I'll see you then.